بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين وجعلنا الله وإياكم من الطالبين بثأره مع وليه الإمام المهدي من آل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وانتصروا من بعد ما ظلموا وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون وقال تعالى والعاقبة للمتقين. Just a very brief speech for tonight, the eve of the 11th of Muharram, a night filled with sorrow, a night filled with grief that befell the Ahlul Bayt, the progeny of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll be only trying to deliver a very brief speech. One of the scholars had said, Ashura is composed of 3 chapters. Ashura is divided into 3 chapters. The first one involves challenging the evildoers. When Imam al-Hussein resisted against Banu Umayyah, what led to the battle of Karbala. All the events preceding between Imam al-Hussein's departure from Medina on the year 61 Hijri to Mecca, and from Mecca to his way to Kufa, and when he stopped and was besieged in Karbala. The events after Imam al-Hussein's departure. And yet, although some could argue that Ashura did not begin in Medina, rather, it began years before that. It began on a dreadful day in which Lady Zainab, on the day of Ashura, refers to that day in a statement which requires many lectures to unpack. A statement that requires a lot of analysis. And the evidence that support this statement is abundant. There's a lot of evidence. But it is a very cryptic statement that she makes. She says on the day of Ashura, as part of the things that she said, was that بأبي من أضحى عسكره يوم الاثنين نهبا. That may my father be ransomed for the one who his army was sacrificed on Monday. Monday. Even though Imam al-Hussein was not martyred on Monday. What does this mean? It's a simple reference for those who are willing to study history critically. For those who are willing to open their blinders, to open their eyes. For those who are willing to question the beliefs that they have had about history, that they have grown up with. It may not make sense unless if we're willing to look up a little deeper into it. What is Monday? What happened on Monday? When the Prophet ﷺ was martyred. When someone accused the Prophet of being delirious. When the Prophet ﷺ ordered to bring him a pen and paper, a quill and a parchment, so that he would write something to prevent the nation from being misguided after him. But when he was prevented. And then, after the loss of the Prophet, what happened? Under a shed, a group of people gathered called Saqifat Bani Sa'ada, where they were fighting against each other as to who will be the first one to usurp, to steal the position of the Prophet. as caliphate. A fight over power and authority that breaks out, which leads to a series of events that ultimately culminates in Karbala and leads to the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. That argument can be made at the right place, at the right time, just not tonight. Lady Zainab gives us just enough to discover the truth behind the massacre that took place in Ashura. This is the first chapter of Ashura. The second chapter involves the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein and his companions on the day of Ashura. That only goes on for almost a day, or perhaps less than a day. And that chapter leads to the events in the immediate aftermath of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. It deals with the unspeakable crimes committed against the progeny of the Holy Prophet, against the Ahlul Bayt, against the women and the children. And the things that those monster creatures showed how humanity can come at its lowest form, for below than animals and beasts. When humans choose to abandon their ideals and values and religion for the sake of their desires, their little desires. When humans feel that they can act in a manner that their actions do not have consequences, and they live a life like that, leading them to commit an atrocity like Karbala. They will eventually become worse than the wildest animals. And that is something that was put on full display on the day of Ashura. The third chapter involves on the 11th day of Muharram. And all these chapters are important and have deep meanings. But the third chapter covers what involved the victory of blood over the swords, intisaru dam ala sayf. Or as the Quran says, وَانْتَصَرُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا. Covering the severed head, the children, the women being forcefully dragged to accompany the enemy and to become their captives. Shortly here I will try to bring up some of the role of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha. Sayyidah Zainab had the responsibility to look after the women and the children. What was remained from the women and the children? It is narrated that she gathered Imam Zain al-Abidin in the biggest tent in the middle. And then around him, surrounding him, the women and the children, starting from the youngest to the oldest, as a form of protection for Imam Zain al-Abidin salamullah alayhi, so that Imam al-Sajjad does not get killed. And my analysis is that maybe one of the reasons that prevented Bani Umayyah from killing Imam al-Sajjad, just one of the reasons, was that probably they thought that he is very ill, a marid person. And a marid person is not able to become the imam, because they were looking to kill and massacre all the remnants of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So when they saw Imam Zain al-Abidin was marid, maybe one of the reasons why they did not kill the imam was that stopped them. So Lady Zainab had the mission to protect Imam Zain al-Abidin salamullah alayhi. And also, on the eve of the 11th of Muharram, when darkness came, when the enemy surrendered to sleep, because Imam al-Hussein salamullah alayhi and his army and their combat against the enemy, they made the enemy to become tired, to become very tired in battling them, what was not expected from the enemy. So when night came, Sayyidah Zainab, as narrated, she left her tents in searching for the body of Imam al-Hussein. I don't know why, I don't know what secrets was within this action. But Sayyidah Zainab left and started searching for Imam al-Hussein, and I don't know how she found the body of Imam al-Hussein. And then she did that unique stance where the highest levels of patience was manifested, right? And she lifted parts of the limbs of that sacred body. And she said to the Almighty that Allahumma taqabbal hadha al-qurban min ali Muhammad sallallahu alayhim ajma'in. And then she sat aside and started praying Salatul Layl. But her Salatul Layl was done while sitting down, not by standing, as she did not have any more energy left. And the third chapter, where it covers after the day of Ashura, on the 11th day of Muharram, where Yazid chose to take the women and children as his captives and to drag them towards his habitat, Dimashq. And some say that the biggest mistake that Yazid made in his tactics after the killing of Imam al-Hussein was to take the women and the children. His intense feeling of enmity and revenge to make them as his captives, to bring them across 40 towns and villages to display them. But the thing is that he wasn't expecting was that they had the opportunity. They had the opportunity to fully prove the oppression that had fell upon them. In doing that, he gave a platform, an official platform for Lady Zainab, salamullah alayha, for Imam Zain al-Abidin, salamullah alayh, even Lady Ruqayyah, to openly express their grief and sorrow and spread news on the massacre that took place in Ashura. Yazid's insanity let this grave miscalculation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand about Ashura and to try to learn from its lessons, to its secrets, and to accept our actions, our little actions, to mourn the sacred event that took place on the day of Ashura, and to consider us one of the companions of Imam al-Mahdi, Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, and to avenge the blood of Imam al-Hussein, and to have his intercession on the day of judgment. برحمته وفضله ومنه وكرمه وجوده. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.